things the woman had said. For the first few sessions, Rachel did nothing but cry. That was good, the therapist said. Let it all out. Rachel was ashamed to tell her that her tears were not for the children, or even for her husband, Luke. Her tears were over Michael, the man she loved and would never be able to have. Ah, said the therapist, you're transferring your pain over Luke and the children to a smaller loss in order to make it more tolerable. But the therapist was wrong. Rachel didn't intentionally evade the therapist's many attempts to get her to talk about the children. She simply couldn't remember them. The students were a blur to her, and she knew she had to keep them that way. She couldn't bring herself to take too close a look at them, to remember details like a smile, or blue eyes, or scattered freckles across an upturned nose. She wondered whether the therapist had been disgusted by her unwillingness to examine what had happened, or if she had understood then what Rachel was only coming to understand now, 21 years after the fact. She had tucked her memories of the children and Luke into a neat little box in her mind, to be opened only when she was ready to deal with what she might find inside. And she was ready now, or she would have to be. The call from the social worker had shocked her at first. Go back to reflection to take care of an old woman who was essentially a stranger to her? But the timing of the call was serendipitous. Phil was gone. Chris was home for the summer, but thoroughly involved with his friends. She'd taken time off, intending to get herself back in shape, physically and emotionally, after this difficult year. She could do that as easily in reflection as she could in San Antonio. And so she'd said, "Sure, I'll come," responding with the same detached calm that always accompanied her thoughts of her hometown. It was as if she'd been expecting that phone call, waiting for someone to tell her it was time to go home. She'd looked forward to the drive. It had been a while since she'd traveled on her own, and she found herself altering her route, intentionally getting lost, exploring places not on her itinerary. She'd brought her bicycle with her, and she took it off the bike rack a few times to ride through an intriguing town or speed along a path by the side of a river. She liked having time to think. Yesterday she'd come up with a way she could give something back to her hometown. She would contact the schools to see if she might be able to tutor students who needed extra help on a strictly voluntary basis. The thought pleased her enormously, easing something inside her that had long needed easing. It was quiet outside her motel room, and she got out of bed. This would be her last day on the road. She took a shower and dressed, then bought a newspaper in the motel's sundry shop before walking across the street to a restaurant. She ordered cereal and bananas, spreading the paper out on the table while she ate. She grimaced at the picture on the front page. Rwanda, again. The devastation in the refugee camps. Adults with empty eyes. Sick, starving children. She had lived in Rwanda once, teaching in the Peace Corps in the early 70s. Even then, the country had been in turmoil. She stared at the blank faces of the children. They could be the sons and daughters of children she had taught back then. The cereal suddenly felt like rocks in her stomach, and she put away the front section of the paper in favor of the comics. It was 1 o'clock when she pulled her car off the road at the crest of Winter Hill, and for the first time she felt certain she'd made the right decision in coming. She was not the superstitious type, but when she'd reached the Pennsylvania border a few hours earlier, the classical station she was listening to played Peter Huber's Patchwork. It was her favorite of her grandfather's compositions, and it felt almost as if he were talking to her, winking at her the way he used to do when she was small, saying, "Welcome to your home state, Rachel." Everyone knew the story behind that particular piece of music.